But with that being said, we're going to move on to the next segment. Should the San Francisco 49ers hit the reset button? This is a really tough question because the 49ers have a lot of questions to answer for their forsaken future. So I'll be sharing my input if the 49ers should hit the reset button and blow it all up. So with that being said, no, I don't think the 49ers should hit the reset button and blow up this roster. When healthy, the 49ers have one of, if not the best roster in the National Football League. From top to bottom, when they're healthy, there is hardly any holes in this roster. But that's the thing. Now we're seeing these guys get injured, and it kind of, for a lot of people in the league, yeah, some people might think, yeah, the 49ers should hit the reset button. But I think they should just retool instead. Now, they had a lot of injuries, and that is the reason why the 49ers find themselves at 5-7. Now, I will say the franchise is on borrowed time. I will say that because I even said a year ago in this podcast that the 49ers Super Bowl window is closing pretty quickly due to these players with massive contracts and the cap space that the 49ers are going to have to go through in the next several years. They're going to have to make some financial decisions as soon as this season is over. So you can't pay all these superstars forever. And we're talking about some top-tier players like Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Nick Bosa. There is a lot of players that the 49ers get themselves into a cap space and cap trouble if they don't address this issue as early as the NFL offseason. So again, I wouldn't rebuild, but I would retool. So these are the things I do believe that the 49ers should do in order to retool, to make sure they don't hit the reset button and they can still be contenders in the NFC for the next few years. So the changes that need to be made for this offseason. Starting off, we'll get rid of Deebo Samuel. Bye-bye, Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is not the same player that he once was in 2021 before he got that deal with the 49ers. Now, we're talking about Deebo Samuel that was an X-Factor player, a gadget player that you use as a wide receiver and a running back in 2021. He could get you yards as a pass catcher. You could line him up in the backfield to get you yards as a running back. He could do it all in 2021. And he reminded me of a poor man's Percy Harvin, and I say that with all due respect. But he's not that same he's not the same gadget player. Deebo Samuel was never a good route runner as a wide receiver. And ever since then, realistically, Deebo Samuel has unproduced since he got that big deal with the 49ers. And he's regressed as a player. Even with guys like Brandon Ayuk being out with a torn ACL, he has yet to step up in this 49ers offense all season long. And he likes to talk behind a microphone just like I do. Talk about the game, but you can't back it up. So I'm talking about Deebo Samuel that only has 38 catches, 531 yards receiving, 4 receiving touchdowns this year. That's not good enough to get the money that he's getting right now in San Francisco. And after the season, they still got to deal with him financially because they have 1 year left on the deal. But I think it's smart for the 49ers to get rid of Deebo Samuel by cutting him or trading him as early as the NFL offseason. Now, next, the 49ers got to rebuild their offensive line. Now, the 49ers, I will say that's one of their holes. Outside of Trent Williams, this offensive line really isn't as strong. And I think the 49ers should address retooling their offensive line in the NFL draft. I would spend most of the picks on the line because that is one of your holes in this team. Again, you have one of the most loaded, most talented rosters in the league when healthy. Why not rebuild this offensive line? And if they keep most of their roster healthy, this could help them possibly win a Super Bowl next year, depending on what the rest of the roster looks like. And look at the top tier teams in the NFC, what they're doing or what they've spent a lot of time doing over the last few years, building their offensive line. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles. They have the best offensive line in the National Football League, despite Jason Kelce even retiring last year at the end of last NFL season. So the Eagles have spent a lot of time doing that. The Detroit Lions have spent a lot of time retooling their offensive line. Both of those teams have the best offensive lines of football out there. And that would be smart for Kyle Shanahan, who loves to run the football. You get a healthy Christian McCaffrey back with a retooled offensive line. And he's a very physical play call. He likes to be a physical team running the ball. That would be really smart for him to do. So Now, next, this one I'm telling the truth about. Do not panic on re-signing Brock Purdy. Now, Brock Purdy next year is in the final year of his rookie deal. And if I were John Lynch and the 49ers executives in the front office, I would not panic to pay Brock Purdy a new deal. You already know what could happen if you give Brock Purdy a massive deal. It would blow up the team. Cap space wise, it would damage the team, and you would have to get rid of a good chunk of your star players if you give Brock Purdy a bag to $50 to $60 million a year. I would make him earn a big contract in his final year of his rookie deal. And I would say with Brock Purdy being 5-7, he hasn't really elevated this team. I know they went through injuries, but if you're going to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the National Football League, don't you got to do your work? Don't you got to elevate your team? When things don't go right or when your roster's not healthy, they look at the quarterback to elevate the roster. And Brock Purdy has not done that because the team is 5-7 despite all these injuries happening. And yeah, you could say he's been to 2 NFC championships. Yeah, you could say he made a Super Bowl appearance. But if Brock Purdy was as good as you guys thought he really was, he would have won a Super Bowl. And I will take away, I will say that part, but I will take away the first NFC because he did get hurt in that game. The first NFC championship he made. But as much as I like Brock Purdy as a player, I don't know. I would not panic to give him a new deal just yet. I would make him earn it. Now, final thing I would do if I was the 49ers, retooling. I would bring back Robert Saleh as the defensive coordinator. Now, Robert Saleh was the defensive coordinator years ago. And he had this defense playing at an elite level, one of the best defenses in the National Football League when he was their defensive coordinator before he took the job to become the New York Jets head coach. And from what I'm seeing, this would be a great addition of getting Robert Saleh back as your defensive coordinator because the defense for the 49ers has not been dominant as they used to be in the last 2 seasons in the National Football League. So I think this would be a great hire back to get Robert Saleh to control the defense. Run a similar scheme that he did. I would say this would be a good hire. I don't think Robert Saleh is going to land a head coaching job this offseason. I would be very surprised if he did in the NFL. So why not go back to Kyle Shanahan, go back to your roots, play for your old boss, coach for your old boss, and go back to 49ers. But that's exactly how I would retool the San Francisco 49ers this NFL offseason.